All right, today we are diving into one of the most incredible, most world-changing events in all of history, the Spanish conquest of the Aztec Empire.
It's a question that just seems impossible, right? How could such a tiny force bring down a massive empire? Well, the answer isn't as simple as you might think. It's not just about guns and steel. This is a story of incredible ambition, of devastating disease, and most importantly, of unlikely alliances that made the impossible happen.
I mean, just look at this. The numbers are staggering. On one side, you've got Hernán Cortés with a crew you could probably fit into a large lecture hall. On the other, the mighty Mexica Empire, the civilization we usually call the Aztecs, ruling over millions of people. On paper, this isn't even a contest. It should have been over before it began.
And the whole thing really kicks off because of the ambition of one man, Hernán Cortés. Believe it or not, he was a law student from Spain who sailed to the New World to make his fortune. He was smart, he was ruthless, and he was just waiting for a chance to do something big.
And that chance came when the governor of Cuba, a guy named Diego Velázquez, asked him to lead an expedition to the mainland. Now, his force was tiny, but those horses and cannons, they gave him a major technological advantage. But honestly, his real weapons were his strategic mind and just his sheer, unbelievable audacity.
So, the moment he lands in Mexico, Cortés makes three incredibly bold moves. First, he founds his own town, Veracruz, which put him under the direct authority of the King of Spain, basically cutting out his boss. And then, and this is the wild part, he scuttled his own fleet. He made it impossible for his men to retreat. He was telling them, there is no going back. The only way is forward, into the heart of the empire.
But even with all that bravado, Cortés wasn't stupid. He knew he couldn't conquer millions of people with just 500 men. No way. His entire plan, the whole thing, depended on one single idea, turning the empire's own people against their rulers.
So he started with the people living on the coast, like the Zempoalans. They were sick and tired of paying heavy taxes, or tribute, to the Aztec capital, Tenochtitlan. Cortés didn't show up as a conqueror. He presented himself as a liberator, someone who could help them break free.
But this was the real game changer. The Tlaxcalans were a powerful, independent group, and they were the sworn, bitter enemies of the Aztecs. After a bit of fighting, they realized they had a common enemy in the Mexica. And that alliance, it transformed Cortés's tiny band of adventurers into the leaders of a massive indigenous rebellion.
So, as this huge, newly formed army marches inland, the Aztec Emperor, Moctezuma II, is getting, well, pretty nervous. He sends all these amazing gifts of gold, hoping the Spanish will just take the treasure and go home. But all that gold, it just made them want to get to the capital even more.
Now, on the way, Cortés hears rumors of a potential ambush in the city of Cholula, a major Aztec ally. So he decides to strike first, and he strikes hard. He orchestrates a brutal massacre of the city's leaders. The sheer shock and terror from that event sent a message across the empire, and it cleared his path right to the capital's doorstep. When the Spanish finally saw Tenochtitlan, they were just floored. It was an absolute marvel, a giant glittering city built on an island in the middle of a lake. But they also saw the danger. The only way in or out was across these long causeways with drawbridges. If those bridges were raised, they'd be trapped, completely cut off. So to guarantee their safety, the Spanish make their most audacious move yet. They walk into the emperor's palace and they take him hostage. They put Moctezuma under arrest in his own home. And for months, this incredibly tense, weird peace held, with Cortés trying to rule the whole empire through its captive leader.
But a situation that crazy just couldn't last. Cortés actually had to leave Tenochtitlan to go deal with a rival Spanish army that had been sent to arrest him. So he left his hot-headed second-in-command, Pedro de Alvarado, in charge of the city. And that was a huge mistake.
It was a total disaster. During a huge religious festival, Alvarado completely misread the situation. He thought the ceremony was the start of an attack, so he panicked and ordered his men to slaughter the unarmed Mexica elites. And that single, brutal act lit a fuse. The entire city erupted into a furious rebellion, and the Spanish found themselves trapped and under siege. By the time Cortés fought his way back to the city, the situation was hopeless. Moctezuma was dead, killed, some say, by his own furious people. With no other choice, Cortés ordered a desperate escape from the city under the cover of darkness. The escape was a complete catastrophe. As they tried to run across the causeway, weighed down with all the gold they'd stolen, they were attacked from all sides by Mexica warriors and canoes. The losses were absolutely devastating. Just look at this chart. Their force plummeted from 100% to less than 40%. They lost more than half of their Spanish soldiers and thousands of their Tlaxcalan allies. It was a crushing, humiliating defeat.
The few survivors who made it out alive limped back to the safety of their allies in Tlaxcala. You'd think that would be the end of the story. But while they were recovering, a new, invisible ally arrived for the Spanish, a smallpox epidemic. It had been brought by the Europeans, and it just ripped through the native population, who had absolutely no immunity.
And this is where Cortés shows his genius as a strategist. He realized he could never take the island city again without first controlling the lake. So he orders the construction of 13 small warships. And get this, they cut the timber way up in the mountains of Tlaxcala, and then thousands of his native allies literally parried the pieces of these ships over the mountains to be assembled on the shores of the lake. It's just an incredible feat of engineering and logistics. With his new navy controlling the water and tens of thousands of allied warriors on land, Cortés laid siege to the capital. In May 1521, they cut off the causeways and the aqueducts, cutting off food and water. By June, his warships had smashed the Mexico canoe fleet, and for the next 2 months, it was just a brutal, slow, house-to-house, street-by-street war of attrition.
Finally, on August 13, 1521, the last pockets of resistance gave way. The final Aztec emperor, a man named Cuauhtémoc, was captured trying to escape in a canoe. The beautiful city of Tenochtitlan was in ruins, and the once mighty Aztec Empire was gone.
So that brings us back to that big question at the start. How did this happen? And you have to ask, was this really a conquest in the way we usually think of it? While the Spanish were absolutely the catalyst, the spark, they couldn't have done it alone. The fall of the Aztec Empire was only possible because of the tens of thousands of indigenous people who saw a chance to overthrow their masters. It was less of a foreign invasion and more like a massive civil war, triggered and exploited by a few hundred very determined, very lucky outsiders.